Well, thank you, Gordana. Now, Michelle, tell us about you, your experiences.
Um, I too think that from a very young person, I was very aware. Um, I believe a way that I could put it is that I was very aware that what I could see and experience with my senses was limited, that there was more to it. I grew up in a very narrow-minded way of thinking in my family, and very restricted. And I used to speak very freely about what I knew, and I used to share openly what I knew and scare the bejeebers out of my family. So I very quickly learned to be quiet if I didn't want to have an exorcism performed on me. But I also knew I grew up with a very ill mother. I also knew that I was able to relieve her of her illness. And I didn't, what Gordana was just saying about her out-of-body experience, I didn't know why I could do what I could do, but I knew I could do it. But I didn't know how to control it in the fact that I didn't know how to take it into my own body. And that was the danger for me. I would do that sometimes to relieve her of her pain and her agony and give her relief, but then in turn I internalized that. And because I had nobody to talk to about it, that would have just been absurd and bizarre, I stopped doing it. I used to tell my parents my mother especially, quite openly about her childhood and the trauma that she went through growing up, which of course I should have no prior knowledge, but I knew about. It just became a point where I had to be very, very quiet because I scared a lot of people. But I knew my path. I knew where I would end up living. I knew I'd move away. I knew the troubles that I would have in my adult life. And these to me were just things that I knew to be true, and what I used to just term to myself as my knowing. So I could see energy colors. I could see beyond, and I still can. I started to, again, can see well beyond many layers we are existing in. And I must say, and I don't tell really anybody this out loud, to experience the world that way again is quite exhilarating. It's also a path for me of what people would call, and I don't like to use the word, but what people would call psychic, in knowing a lot about situations and people and such. If you have somebody's permission to, you can know a lot about them, because energetically, and if you can see it at an energetic level, you can realize why you learn that information, how you pick it up. Most people are just asleep to it or not paying attention to it, or maybe not even aware of how they're acquiring that information. So that's always been a part of me, and that's the scary part for my family. I'm not quite sure what else to share. I have 3 brilliant children who came into my life, and for a while I did shut just about everything that I could down and basically put myself to sleep, and they woke me back up again. And since then, it's been eye-opening. I understand Andrew's, when you spoke about reading so much, once I started to get a glimpse of what I didn't know by being raised Catholic, I ravaged through as many books as I could read. I had 6 on the go, genres all at the same time, just getting caught up from feeling so ignorant. I had taken the blinders off, and I was finally onto a path that made more sense to me than my Catholic upbringing. So I totally understand that. I couldn't read or absorb fast enough for my own liking. It was nonstop for years. And when I have the energy to do that again, I'd like to return.
Well, thank you, Michelle. That's very informative, very interesting, very exciting. And Melanie, how about you?
Hi. It's interesting to hear how many people have such abilities. I'm very strong Taurus, very strong earth-bound spirit, And I think being a musician has helped me to come out of that. I've had a number of psychic experiences, but I, I think my perception, I think my perception is more maybe auditory because of my musician.
Zij zegt ook iets over de ontvangst. Kun je
You know that we're hearing all this?
Ik heb het al gedaan, daar, via de e-mail.
Are we getting some interference there?
Pauline is talking.
Yes, Pauline, if you
No,
keep talking...
I'm
the
still
other-
very sorry, but I can't hear you.
But we can hear you, so if you keep talking, the other ones cannot talk. So you will have to stop talking and
Well, but
start...
I can hardly respond to all of you.
Okay.
Because somebody is speaking and then most words fall away and then I hear some words and then it's falling away again.
Maybe you're having troubles from Europe with this.
And my connection is okay. I just asked my husband to control it, but it's still, over here it's all okay.
Well, we hear you perfectly well.
I can't
Story
hear
of
you.
my life, I'm always being interrupted. Okay, I've always had to force
Yeah, my
myself,
image is good. And
force myself out there to be heard. So, Pauline, I'm going to talk now, okay? Yeah, being shy, I've always had to push myself out there so people notice me because I'm behind the piano, I'm playing, and so forth. Yeah, so I've always been a seeker, and even though my parents were into esoteric work and so forth, they also were strongly into the church, Episcopal church, and so I became very, my seeking became a more Christian seeking, and I thought that at that point,
you're falling away.
I thought at that point that I needed to do more of a church thing. So I think what it really was that I needed to get away from what my parents were trying to tell me was right and find it for myself. So I went more deeply into the church for a while. During that time, I had what I might call an enlightenment experience where I walked down the street near the Cathedral of St. John the Divine in New York, and then all of a sudden, while looking at this tree, everything became one, and it's like I was in another realm. And so that really showed me that there was something else out there, more than just what had been taught me. So what I was struggling with then was reincarnation, which my parents had taught me, and I said, no, that's not true. I have to find that for myself. So I went through some different kinds of research and trying to disprove it. And then I had some experiences which showed me that this was it. And so when I went back to understanding those things, it was very strong. But then I went through a very long journey, which I won't go into because it's very long, of trying to find the right thing and pushing away the right thing maybe, until I did finally embrace it. And I don't know, Steiner for me, like I think Walter said, was it that once you start studying and you become this child of the cosmos and you're standing on Earth and feel all the heavens above you and the history of the human being around you, you can't go back. It's just so wonderful. And you know, it's I don't know. It's an ongoing process for me, and I'm very pleased to be here. I don't know what else to say. There's so much history I can't really pinpoint it. But.
Well, thank you.
Melanie, do you understand why you feel a child of the cosmos?
Yes, because when reading, for instance, so-called science and so forth, and the history of the cosmos, and especially I was pulled in by the development of the human being over the millennia, of the billions of years that we were shaped by the angelic powers. And
in the microphone, please.
what? I can't. Maybe she can't still hear. Anyway, it became the thing that really drove me forward, and I've gone on from there. So.
Now, Jeffrey, by the way, before Jeffrey talks, let me mention something that I found in the work that I've done, that people who admire Steiner a great deal, very few Steiner people have had these spiritual experiences that Pauline expresses and that Gordon expresses. And to me, it's very interesting and amazing that all of this wealth that Steiner brings, and out of Steiner's experiences, is if you take it into intellectually.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Well, we can hear you fine. It's too bad.
Are her speakers down, or?
Yeah, I wonder if you just need to turn up your speaker.
No, you must have internet issues.
Yeah.
It breaks up.
Sorry, Pauline. Anyway, most of the Steiner people that I know have not had these spiritual experiences that you women are all describing. And that's such a shame. But I see that when I introduce people who have your experiences, you then can relate to Steiner much better than the Steiner people can. So I find this very, very interesting and worthwhile in terms of how come and what is the balance that needs to happen. Now, Jeffrey, tell us about yourself.
Well, yeah, I don't have those kinds of spiritual abilities that some of the women have just described, at least not so far. I must confess that when I first ventured into the spiritual world, it was with the in the 60s with the use of psychedelic substances, but it was also, I was very fortunate because I ran into a very unusual person who, together we had telepathic communications, which of course implies that there's a spiritual world, even though I might not have said that we were in it, but since we were able to communicate without speaking for extended periods of time, this could go on for hours, there was no question that there was something beyond the physical. So, well, that sort of it was a real jolt, you might say. It was. It took me years to really absorb what had happened, and then, in fact, when I was 30, about approximately 30, I should just briefly say is a story. I picked up the Steiner's book on the book of John, the Gospel of John, and he talks about the I Am. And there was the first time I had I was reading something that corresponded to my experience back in the 60s when I think I had an experience of the I Am, but I wasn't really able to understand it or discuss it. But there was no question that Steiner was talking about the very same thing, especially with that particular chapter. I think there's one chapter in there called the I Am. So then I was pulled off the track and had a experience comparable to some of what Steiner describes when he was experiencing the Theosophical people, and I went out and joined Elizabeth Clare Prophet's group out in California. It's called the Summit Lighthouse, and she was a very unusual spiritual teacher, and she was channeling, and I spent 7 years out there in her group, leading a very spiritual life, and I started to have some sort of spiritual experiences there, and perhaps experienced a past lifetime there. So I don't know, fast forwarding to approximately 10 years ago, I picked up Sergei Prokofiev's book on evil, which by that time I'd had quite a bit of a confrontation with myself. So there it was again. I was thunderstruck in a way with that book, and it explained so many things. So from then on, I've been I don't know if I've read 4 books a week. I couldn't read 4 books a week like you have, Andrew, but I've been reading pretty continuously, and you must have a remarkable quality if you can read 4 of those books a week, because his books are quite challenging. I don't know how many of you thought Theosophy was challenging. Did you think Theosophy was challenging?
Yes.
Yeah, for me it was like recapitulating what I already knew.
Yeah.
So for me it wasn't challenging at all. Some of his other books are very challenging, and his karmic relationship lectures are extremely challenging, extremely far out. Reminds me of Pauline's conversations. But no, some of the things, and I see Steiner wrote in different forms for different people, for different parts of Europe, and certain things, and then certain stages of his life. He wrote to the soul at the earliest, first of all the brain, then the soul, and then the spirit at the end of his life. So a very different writing experiences to try and reach as many people as he could. And then he was one of the outstanding lecturers in Europe. And then he started to change his lectures because he wasn't interested in being famous and being important. He was interested in turning on the few people that could understand what he was talking about. And Steiner, I think, died of a heart attack, heart failure, because his own followers couldn't understand what he was talking about. I mean, I'd say Steiner, when you read, first of all, they burned his temple down in Switzerland. I mean, he had such terrible experiences with the world and people. Never at all once did he become down or negative. I mean, very interesting, his life story and the kind of man he was. Anyway, in answer to your question, Jeffrey, some of the material is very easy for me to read and very exciting. It's like reading the most exciting novel that you ever read. And some things are very hard work. So I understand just what everybody says about him, depending on what you read. Now, Walter, how about you? Can you relate to any of this?
I hear what you're saying. I mean, we could read books and after books after books, but unless it takes hold of you, any part of the book becomes an ideal where you are transformed. It becomes something more than just on an intellectual level, because you can read all kinds of books, but if you don't heed them, or it doesn't change your life, it doesn't take you in a different direction, then it's just knowledge. Okay? Somehow it has to go deeper than an intellectual level. And that's the challenge we all face. I face that every day. I mean, do I have to put the time and energy to make this thing become fructose, become a seed where it takes hold of you and it grows up inside of you. That's where we all face this challenge. I mean, I've read many of his books, and it's slowly taken hold of me, but it's a process. You know, you said you had a very instant transformation when you saw that. You saw things in a very biased way, and you wanted to see it in an unbiased way. So that took a hold of you very quickly. And that's what I'm trying to do. Unfortunately, or unfortunately, I haven't had the experience these ladies have had with the spirit world. I'm trying to get there through a process using Steiner's word. But it's not easy. If anybody read How to Know Higher Worlds, you will know that you have to be prepared to interpret what you see in the spirit world. You just cannot go there, and you could be subject to all kinds of misinformation and different representation, fantasia, all kinds of weird things. So unless you are prepared emotionally, spiritually, and all that stuff, then the spirit world will start revealing itself to you, and you will interpret it properly. So maybe I'm not ready to interpret. That's why I'm not being. It's not coming my way yet.
Walter,
So,
I like to say that you probably have had a lot more experiences than you know, because Steiner talks about all the time that we miss these experiences where we go somewhere and we might have had this experience, but we missed it. But that's an opening to the spiritual world, like you might have had an accident, but you stayed home a little bit longer and so forth. So they're around us all the time. And I didn't mean to convey that I'm like these other ladies. I'm very intellectual and very down to earth. And the few real psychic experiences I've had have helped me, but I have struggled also to bring the intellectual into the into the life. And I find that working with your own biography helps that a lot, because you start, like Andrew said, you start seeing things in your life that were subject to these things, and they make you grow. So that's just an example.
Yeah, that's true. What Rudolf Steiner is talking about in this book chapter is informing people that there is much more to become a true human, and it's not all about your physical, about your inner senses, and that by raising questions why something happens to you, for example, why you have an out of your body experience, what is the meaning of it, why such a thing happens, what it is you are learning at the present. And as soon as you catch the answers, you catch a little bit more insight into yourself. Or for the example Steiner is using, a little bit of the blindfold is taken away and you see a little bit further.
yeah, one thing that came true to me through the years has been that all the things that come your way, especially the ones you don't like, it's caused by you. So I show a little bit more patience. I don't get angry as before. I said, I must have done something wrong for this to come my way in a previous life or a different situation. So from that perspective, it's made me a better person. Because I feel, and I believe it. If you go back enough in time, whatever comes your way, you caused it.
Well, you are at least creating your own life, and to know that is quite an experience already.
I think that when you start dividing your inner spiritual experiences with an outer world, that's when you get into troubles experiencing the spiritual world. And I think that I'm having some troubles with Steiner's description of this division between ourself and the outer world, because in my reality there is no outer and inner world. Everything is one world, and I'm spiritual if you know that everything is happening inside, not on the outside. So you don't have to be afraid, you don't have to prepare yourself for the spiritual world, because it's there and it's yours. So you can experience it without being afraid, because you're the one creating it. And that I'm having troubles with Steiner, because he's dividing. It's like this stuff.
He doesn't divide it. It's one. You're experiencing your outer senses go right into.
Well, I think what you're confusing is the perception of things we're individually, but and the thinking pattern or form we're all in one cosmos. There, I don't know. I remember reading that part. So the thinking the perception plus thinking creates reality. So we perceive individually. There is a difference the way you perceive the way I perceive. I don't know if I'm making
But I'm glad Gordana brought that up, because that's what I wanted to discuss with all of you. Why is it important to know about these differences in us? That is, why is it important to know that we have a physical body, an etheric body, an astral body, and an I amness. Why is it necessary to categorize these things the way Steiner does? And I've thought about this quite a bit over the years, because a lot of people just want to get to the end, which is that we're all one, and we're all, and everything is one, and we're all the same. Now, why does Steiner insist on taking us to this sounding very intellectual about dividing us up into these different entities?
Well,
in my opinion,
I don't think that what I meant was that what I'm saying is that my inner and outer experience is one. It can never be divided. What I'm experiencing as an outer reality is, in fact, my inner reality also. And you are having the same experience from a different perspective. We're all looking at the same now moment from different perspectives. And that's how all that is, it's experiencing itself through each and one of us in a different way. So we are all one, experiencing one and the same thing from different perspectives. And I don't find this in Steiner. I find that he's dividing, and it's very hard to take it in. You have to prepare yourself. You have to do a lot of things just to be able to find the spiritual world. If you stop prepare yourself, and if you stop being so analytical, maybe you can even have this spiritual experience. As long as you're preparing experience, you're trying to control it. And that's the problem I think Walter is having, because he wants to control it, he wants to make it in a specific way, and that's what he's creating.
You know, Steiner himself...
Well, it's happening all at...
I don't know if I make any...
It's happening all, as you mentioned it, Gordana, it's happening both in and outside yourself, but Steiner is trying to give it words, and he does it in his lifetime, and that means he categorizes it, because he wants to understand that there are certain... And why does he do it? Because it's like my own experience. I once went with a group of people to an occasion, and I noticed that people could tell me what was going on with me, and I could learn that as well, and I started to learn it. But every time I took a certain level of classes, I thought, well, I know now quite a lot, and then I started to learn even more, and then I said, well, I have now enough, and then I learned even more, and it still continues. And even nowadays, now I'm already over 25 years occupying an occupation with it. How to speak with energy, I still feel an apprentice, because there's still so much to discover. For example, I'm sitting here in the third dimension all by myself in this room. But when I look, I sense more than 50 persons in this room as well. So that's the other level. That's also happening. And that is what you can do when you start to talk with the energy present. And then you get answers. Why are they? I can start questioning them. Why are those people here? What is it you want to find out? Why are there so many people around you as well? That is just one of those questions. By asking questions, you can get an answer, and you get even deeper answer. And that is what Rudolf Steiner is in his lifetime, so with his language, trying to tell us and to learn us. But he's talking it in a way he likes to express it in his lifetime, and that was, for us now, that is quite a hard way, because we don't want to divide those things.
That's interesting. When I, you know, when we started this seminar, I saw that I couldn't use the method that I used because it was just for me. So I had to search around for what other people were doing, how other people were trying to teach other people how to turn themselves on to their own spiritual reality. And I saw I couldn't do that. I had no method for doing that. Now, for instance, I've been blessed with having a wonderful disposition. I never, ever get down the least bit. I've been a happy person ever since I was 14 years old. Well, I haven't been able to teach that to others. It was just ingrained in me. So with Steiner, I found somebody who tried every different way of trying with words and methods and meditations, every which way to try and help people to turn on to themselves. And of course the message has been lost. People say, well, Steiner said this, Steiner said that. That's not the method that he said. He gave specific methods. Now, Gordana has run into some method that is not compatible with the way you are. Well, he has other methods, other ways of trying to reach you, not just you, but all the different people have different ways, different paths. So this is why this is a very difficult task. How do we turn ourselves on to our spiritual selves and not to separate the inner from the outer, to really combine the inner with the outer? Well, there are different ways of doing this. Meditation, I play the piano like Melanie, so I use the piano for meditation. Now, I'm not going to suggest that everybody learn to play the piano. So
Andrew, there's another aspect of this, though, that when you are very psychic and easily spiritual and have a lot of already feeling of oneness, Steiner sometimes talked about this as atavistic clairvoyance, and what he's trying to do is to get you away from just the natural way of expressing yourself and to learn how to take hold of that as an intellectual being so that you can ascend in a more what he calls spiritual scientific way into the spiritual worlds. And so you won't get up there in a visionary way, but in a way that is real and not illusory. I see it as a musician where you can be very talented as a musician, but if you don't take the lessons and work and go through the difficult part where you really do feel that everything is divided for a while, then it comes together and you're able to play it. But you play it with knowledge, you play it with confidence because you know what you're doing. And I think that is an aspect of this that Steiner emphasizes a number of times where yes, a lot of people who have a lot of atavistic feelings sometimes lose those when they're studying because they need to redirect them into the different bodies that he's describing here.
Yes, that's very interesting.
That's the tricky part as well, and the pitfall. That is the pitfall people step into. I say that's the pitfall people step into.
Oh.
The pitfall, yeah. Nobody's mentioned the aspect of the threshold. It seems to me that, at least that's what I experienced with Steiner's books, is he's trying to build a bridge for those of us who don't have atavistic clairvoyance, like some of you sound like you do, so that you can find a bridge across that threshold and actually learn to go back and forth with ease without losing yourself.
Yeah.
At least that's my impression about what he's doing and why he makes such an effort to find every, like Andrew said, so many different ways to go across that threshold. And, you know, he's, of course, one of his books is entitled The Threshold of the Spiritual World, which, if you have a psychological background and you hear all these stories that happen to people that are in therapy, to me those are, they're having threshold experiences, but they don't understand them. And,
no, because it's about questioning. Why do you have this experience? What is it teaching you? Is it bad or good? Who's involved? Is it a black or white essence who is offering you this experience? Why is it now on your path? You have to ask those questions and you get answers to it.
Very interesting. We've all been given a certain gift with the grace that we've been able to have. Now, for me, the grace is prior life experiences, and it comes back in this atavistic way, but it's automatic. And then I think what Jeffrey was saying is what I see is so true. You have to then work on this in your full consciousness, not just depend on the grace that we received, and we've all received it one way or another, but then work on this and figure out how to do this in a what I call a scientific way. We're exploring the spiritual world. All of us are exploring the spiritual world. And how do we do this in a scientific way? Like modern science has brought us such fantastic things to this world, but it's all in the material world. Now, how do we then redirect this scientific method and redirect it to the spiritual world?
Well, it's a little bit like Steiner mentioned in his book. Scientific approach is not the way to grasp it. It's about what he mentioned, higher thinking, which nowadays people are trying to offer with their mindfulness. That's, in my opinion, still a low way of thinking, because you have no idea how this thinking should be like. But it's just on, perhaps saying, it's just on focusing. I started to learn how to use my inner senses by cleaning colors, and then I had to visualize, for example, the color green, and to clean that color. And I thought, well, it's clean, and then I just started to wipe a little bit with my hands on the station. And then I noticed, well, it has a gray skin on it, and it had bulbs in it, and I had to clean it. And I really had to clean it. And we have done this with other colors as well. And every time there was something to clean up. And every time I cleaned up things within myself. And the more I did, the more I understood that there was a layer in between. And that was the first time I experienced there is something we, with our normal eyes, can't see or don't appreciate with our mind. And the more I stood open for it, that there is more to see and more to notice, the more I was able to see. And nowadays I even talk to people, or they sit on a chair in front of me, and I can explain the red thread through all their lifetimes. And I can explain why things happen to them, or who it is, and whether it's white energy or black energy they are using or involved in. So it's a long way, but I had to open myself and not to think that I knew it because I had studied something, but just by experiencing those layers in between.
I think that when you try to spiritual world in a scientific way, you're going to limit yourself, because a scientific way is always about reduction, and it's by reducing things you have to add things to your reality. So that's why the scientific way is maybe a limitation.
Well, of course,
we shouldn't talk it in a scientific way.
What Steiner says is you start with, say, geometry or arithmetic, which is, a circle is the same as for everybody in the whole world. So he's saying to use that kind of science, that kind of universality, and then apply that to the inner work that you do. So that's what he means by science, to do this in a universal kind of way, so that all of us have had different experiences. And how now do we figure out how to unify all of our different experiences in a way that would be compatible with the concept of a circle. So next week, let's talk about this further, because I think this is very profitable to just discuss these issues and see if we can't really dig deeper into just what the process is for all of us. I found this very interesting, very exciting, very valuable. You're all such wonderful people, and I appreciate knowing you so much. I really do. So same time next week. Michelle, you too, right?
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I'll be here.
Very good. Jeffrey, Walter.
Nice to meet you all.
Very good. Pauline.
Nice to meet
Ellen,
you.
thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Till next week. Bye.